Welcome to Whispers for Sleep. Tonight, let me tell you a story. One that has lingered in whispers across centuries. A story of sleep, not as rest, but as peril. A time when waking in the middle of the night, unable to move, wasn't an accident of the body, but the sign of something else, something watching. But before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight? What's the current time where you are? Let me know in the comments, I always read them. And if you enjoy stories that drift between folklore, history and sleep, please don't forget to subscribe, tap the bell and gently like this video. Now take a breath, sink into the silence, and let me tell you the story of when people believed sleep paralysis was a demon. The wind outside the small Anatolian village howled like a wounded animal. It was the year 1186, and the stone houses clung to the mountainside like sleeping beasts, quiet, unmoving, and brooding under a sky that seemed far too dark. Inside one such home, lit only by the flicker of a dying oil lamp, a boy named Sem lay awake. He was 10 winters old. His mother had told him stories all week of the Karabasan, the dark presser that comes at night, crushing the breath out of those who forget to pray before sleep. She said it always came when your soul was too light, when you left your chest unguarded. Sem had laughed, until now. Now his limbs were ice. His chest felt strange, tight, like something heavy lay across it. The flicker of the oil lamp dimmed further, almost extinguished. Then it happened. A stillness, complete, unnatural. His eyes opened. He could see the rafters of the ceiling, the cracked wall, the small prayer cloth beside the lamp, but his arms wouldn't move. His legs felt buried, his voice gone. Something was in the room with him. No sound, but a presence. It felt ancient. He tried to blink, to scream for his mother, but his body was a coffin. And then, the pressure. As if the room itself had learned to breathe and now exhaled through his lungs. Sem couldn't move. But he could see something shifting in the shadows. A tall, crooked shape. No eyes, no mouth, just black. And it sat, right on his chest. Sem tried to move his fingers, just one. He prayed for even the twitch of a toe. But his body was stone, his breath shallow and uneven, like the wind trying to sneak beneath a locked door. The weight grew heavier, and with it the shape above him began to define itself, not in form, but in intent. It didn't have a face, but somehow it looked at him. Not through eyes, but through some terrible sense of awareness, as though it knew every secret he'd ever thought, every fear, every doubt. Then he heard it. Not words, not a language, just a sound, like the grinding of old wood mixed with something wet, like breath, but not human. Ka! His heart thudded once, and then it stopped. He was certain of it. That pause, too long. Time bent in that moment. Seconds stretched until the silence screamed. His mother had always warned him to keep a prayer under his tongue, but he'd forgotten tonight. Too tired, too proud. And now the Karabasan had come. Suddenly, Sem's eyes began to weep. Not from sorrow, but from the pressure. Tears slid sideways across his temples, wetting his pillow. And then, just as suddenly as it had arrived, the weight vanished. Air returned to his lungs like fire. He gasped, coughed. His voice returned in a single croak. The room was exactly as it had been. The oil lamp still flickered, the cloth untouched. But his chest bore a strange, hot ache, as though something had pressed there with a burning hand. He sat up slowly, his skin cold and damp. He wasn't alone. His mother stood in the doorway, eyes wide. She said nothing, only looked at him. "You saw it," she whispered at last. Did you leave your soul unguarded?" Sem nodded, trembling. She stepped forward, clutching an amulet. "Then you must never sleep again without this." Sem clutched the amulet tight in his fist. It was warm, unexpectedly so. The metal should have been cold, but it pulsed softly in his palm like a heartbeat. His mother wrapped a scarf over his shoulders and whispered something in a tongue older than their village. "What did it want?" he whispered. "It doesn't want," she replied. "It comes because it can. You left the door open." Sem frowned. "I didn't open any door. Not with your hands, with your thoughts, with your silence." She turned to the old wooden chest near the fireplace. From inside she pulled a withered book, its cover cracked and faded with strange, jagged letters etched across it. She opened it to a page marked with dried lavender. "Every child has one visit," she said. "If they're lucky, it's only one. But if you let it return..." She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she traced a drawing on the page. A figure, tall and shadowed, pressing down on a sleeping man, while other spirits hovered just beyond the edges. Sem stared. The picture looked just like what had happened to him. "What is it called?" he asked. "Many names," she said. "In this village, we say Karabasan. In others, the Old Hag, the Mara, Lilith. They are different masks, but behind them..." She closed the book. "It is the same thing. Something older than any of our stories." That night, Sem did not sleep. He sat by the fire with his mother, the amulet looped around his neck like a lifeline. Every so often, she added another pinch of crushed bark to the embers. The scent, bitter and sharp, filled the room. It made his nose sting, but he didn't complain. It was protection, she said, smoke that kept the door between worlds sealed. "You said it has many names," he said quietly, after hours of silence. His mother nodded. Her eyes, always so calm, now shimmered with something deeper. Fear, maybe, or memory. "In the old countries," she said, "the Greeks told of a spirit named Ephialtes, who leapt upon the sleeper's chest. The Romans blamed incubi, demons who came in the night to torment and tempt. And the Vikings. They feared the mare, a spirit who rode you like a horse, stealing your breath, twisting your dreams. From that we get the word nightmare." Sem leaned closer to the fire, mesmerized. The flames danced like whispering spirits, casting flickers of orange across the pages of the book she'd opened again. "Do they all sit on your chest?" he asked. "Some do. Some watch from the shadows, some whisper in your ears or cover your mouth. But the worst are the ones you never see, the ones you only feel, like a weight or a voice inside your bones." The wind picked up outside, howling around the corners of the house. Sem clutched the amulet again. "Why me?" he asked, his voice smaller now. "Why did it choose me?" His mother stared into the fire. "Because you're beginning to understand that the world is not what it seems. And once you know that..." She looked at him now, slowly, carefully. "They know you can see them." By morning, Shem hadn't slept at all. He followed his mother through the narrow paths of the village, where stones crunched softly beneath their feet and mist still clung low to the ground like forgotten breath. The other villagers nodded politely, but their eyes lingered on him, just a moment too long. They knew. Word had already spread. "He's been visited." An old woman whispered to another as they passed. "The Karabasan has marked him." Sem kept his head down. His mother said nothing. They reached the edge of the village, where the forest began. An old hut stood crooked among the trees, barely taller than a cart, with roots creeping up the walls like hungry fingers. Inside lived Amine, the oldest woman in the region. Some said she was part spirit herself. She was waiting by the door. "The boy has seen it," Amine said, even before they spoke. Her eyes were pale, clouded with age, but clear in knowing. Sem's mother bowed respectfully. "It sat on his chest." "Did it speak?" Sem hesitated, then nodded. "Not words, a sound." Amine looked toward the trees. "It means it remembers him." That chilled him more than the encounter itself. Inside her hut, dozens of talismans hung from the beams. Bones, feathers, glass beads. The air smelled of earth and old paper. A pot simmered with a thick herbal mixture. "You were not the first," Amine said, "and you won't be the last. The demon is older than the village, older than fire, but it is not invincible." She handed Sem a small pouch filled with ash and lavender. "Burn this every night. Speak the name you heard, Karabasan. But do not ask it questions. That is how it enters." "What does it want?" he whispered again. Amine turned to him, her voice barely more than breath. "It wants to be remembered. That's how it lives." Back home, Sem and his mother kept the fire going past sunset. The pouch Amine gave him hung over the hearth, and the ash-lavender mixture smouldered in a small clay bowl beside his bed. His mother marked the doorway with chalk, a symbol with 3 curves and a line, old protection from the old world. But despite all this, he couldn't sleep. Not truly. Every time his eyes began to close, his chest tensed. He waited for the pressure, the weight, the breath that wasn't his, but it didn't come. What came instead was a dream. A field, silent, pale. In the distance there was a tree. Its branches reached like arms frozen in a scream. He walked toward it, slowly. His feet made no sound in the dry grass. At the base of the tree sat the shadow again. Not crouched this time. Standing, tall, still. It didn't move. But when Sem looked at it, truly looked, he saw that it had no shadow of its own. "You called me," it said. But its voice wasn't sound. It was like thought, implanted in his bones. "I didn't," Sem said back. "I didn't mean to." "You knew my name," it replied. "That is enough." He tried to run, but his legs wouldn't move. It took a step forward, only one. But the ground shook like thunder, and the sky above the tree turned black. He awoke gasping, hands gripping the side of his mat. His chest didn't ache, but beneath his shirt, just above his heart, something burned slightly. He pulled the fabric down. There on his skin, barely visible, but there was a mark, 3 curves, and a line. The same symbol his mother had drawn on the door. Sem stared at the mark in silence. It pulsed faintly, warm, not painful, as if the skin remembered something he did not. His mother saw it too. She didn't gasp, she didn't cry. Instead, she knelt beside him, whispered a prayer, and kissed the mark as if sealing it. "The demon has left its sign," she murmured, "but not to curse you, to claim you." "Claim me?" Sem's voice cracked. "It will visit again, not to harm, but to speak." She wrapped his shirt back over the mark and handed him a cup of warm root tea. He drank it slowly, but his hands trembled. "Why would it speak to me?" he asked. "Why not you? Or Amane?" His mother stirred the fire, watching the embers with a strange sadness. "Because I believe too much. And Amane, she believes in nothing but you." She turned her gaze to him now. "You are still open." That day, he didn't leave the house. People passed by, but none knocked. Some left food at the step, flatbread, figs, sweet water. Others whispered prayers through the cracks in the door. Sem slept in short bursts, each dream more vivid than the last. The same field, the same tree, the same figure, but now it stood closer. And this time it asked, "Do you fear me?" Sem wanted to scream yes, but in the dream he could only whisper, "I don't know." The figure stepped into the light, and for the first time he saw its face. It was not monstrous, not twisted, it was his own. Sem stood motionless in the dream, his dream facing the figure that bore his face. Not an exact copy, no. It was older, hollow-eyed. The skin was his, but paler, the mouth shaped like his, but stretched in a subtle, cruel curve. It tilted its head, curious, observing him like one inspects something half familiar. "You are not what you were," it said, its voice more solid now. Sem's throat felt dry. In the dream, he could feel the weight of questions inside him, but they wouldn't come out. Only one did. "What are you?" The figure's expression didn't change, but something behind it moved, a fluttering, like fabric or wings. Then the tree behind it cracked, splitting slowly down the center, its bark peeling back like skin. From within poured shadows, dozens of them, crawling, slipping, sliding into the grass and vanishing beneath Sem's feet. "I am the door," the figure said, "and you are the key." With that, the field began to fade, slowly as if the world was sinking into ink. Sem woke up gasping, sweat dripping from his forehead. But this time, he wasn't paralyzed. The mark on his chest was gone, completely. Not even redness, not even a trace. His mother came in before he could speak. "You don't need it anymore," she said. "The mark?" She shook her head. "The fear. But it's still out there. I saw it again. It looked like me." His mother didn't reply right away. Instead, she reached for the fire stick and stirred the ashes. Many who suffer these visitations are tormented, but a few, a very few, are invited. Invited to what? To remember. "Remember what?" he asked again. She looked up at him with eyes like the wind, old and always moving. "The time before you were only flesh." The days passed quietly, though Sem barely noticed them. He no longer dreamed in the way other children did. His sleep had become something else, deeper, darker, more like falling than resting. And always the tree returned. Sometimes its bark bled, sometimes its roots pulsed like veins, but always the figure stood nearby, his not self watching from just beyond the reach of the pale sunlight. One night in the dream, Sem approached the tree. It groaned softly as he stepped closer, and the ground beneath him seemed to breathe. "This is not a dream," the figure said. "This is memory." Whose? Sem asked. The figure didn't answer, only placed a pale hand on the tree trunk. As it did, a wave of cold washed over Sem, like being plunged into ice. The whispers began again, this time from beneath the soil. He knelt and placed his ear to the ground. Voices. 1,000 at once, all speaking different tongues, but somehow he understood every one of them. It sat on me. I couldn't move. The shadow was inside my mouth. The breath, it wasn't mine. Sem pulled away. They're all like me. The figure nodded. You've joined a long line. But why me? Because some wake, and some remember. Cem jolted awake, his breath ragged. His hands clenched into the blanket. His mother was sitting by the fire. She hadn't slept. She never did now. It showed you the roots, didn't it? She asked quietly. He nodded, still shaking. It's not a demon, he whispered. Not just. His mother stirred the coals. Then what is it? He didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, it's a library. She looked up, startled. A library of pain. The words hung in the room like smoke. A library of pain. Sem wasn't sure where the idea had come from. It hadn't felt like his own thought. More like something planted, something remembered. His mother said nothing, but her eyes watched him more carefully now. Later that night, while she crushed herbs near the fire, he asked, what happens to the others? She looked up. What others? The ones who never speak of it, who never remember, who see the shadow and wake up screaming but forget. She let the pestle fall softly into the bowl. They sleep again. Is that good? She hesitated. It's safe, but not true. This time she didn't answer. That night, Sem returned to the field. The tree looked different now, larger, older, with more roots above the ground than below. Its bark was etched with carvings, faces, shapes, languages he didn't know but somehow understood. The not self was gone. Instead, dozens of other figures stood beneath the branches. Some faced the tree, others knelt. A few lay flat against the roots, as if listening. Sem approached one, a woman, her hair coiled in braids like ropes. Her eyes were open but unseeing. What is this place? He whispered. She didn't speak, but behind her another voice answered. It was the tree, where the soul goes when the body forgets. He turned. There was no mouth on the trunk, no face, only a great slow heartbeat in the roots. Why show me this? He asked. The tree answered simply, because you didn't close your eyes. Sem took a slow step backward from the tree. His chest ached, not with fear, but with something heavier, realization. The woman kneeling before the tree still hadn't moved. Her breath was shallow, like she was clinging to sleep. All around the roots, more figures began to appear. Dozens, then hundreds. Men, women, children. Some from his time, others dressed in ways he'd never seen. Ancient fabrics, bronze jewelry, skin inked with unfamiliar symbols. They were all sleeping, dreaming. Frozen. Some trembled, some wept, and some had no faces at all, eroded like statues left too long in the rain. These are the ones who didn't wake? Sem asked. These are the ones who didn't return, the tree replied. Their bodies still sleep, but their minds remain here. Sem felt the field darken, as if a storm was approaching from nowhere. So the Karabasan, it doesn't just sit on you, it takes you. Only if you let it, the tree said. Only if the weight is too familiar, too comfortable. He didn't like how that sounded. Comfort was the last thing he associated with the shadow. And yet some of the sleepers had peaceful faces. Back in the waking world, Sem stirred. It was just before dawn, and the first light slid through the cracks of the wooden shutters. He turned to see his mother asleep at last, her chin resting against her shoulder. He stood quietly and walked to the door. Outside, the wind had stilled. For the first time in weeks, there was no chill in the air. But across the dirt path, Amine was standing by the well, waiting. It's not done with you, she said, as if they'd been speaking already. Sem didn't respond. She walked closer, slow and quiet. There's an old place in the forest, she said. No one goes there now, not since the dreams came back. But if you want to know the truth, not just the memories, you'll need to see it. Sem followed Amine into the woods before sunrise. The trees here grew so tightly together that light barely touched the ground. Roots twisted in unnatural patterns, and branches bent low, as though eavesdropping. They walked in silence. Amine's steps were light despite her age. She carried no torch, no charms, no amulets, just a strip of bark tucked into her palm. This place, she whispered at last, was where the first sleep-takers were buried. Sleep-takers? Sem asked. Those who never woke. In old times they said their souls were devoured, but that's not quite right. What happened? She stopped before a clearing. The air here was wrong, too still, like a held breath. They were absorbed. Sem stepped forward. The clearing was filled with hollowed stumps, too wide to be trees, too shallow to be graves. The ground between them pulsed faintly beneath the moss. One stump stood taller than the rest. Its inside was smooth, almost polished, and at the base, carved in sharp, violent lines, was the symbol. 3 curves. 1 line. This is the mouth, Amine said. One of many. The place where the Karabasan feeds. Not on flesh, on memory. Sem shivered. Is this where I'll end up? Only if you stop asking questions. That night he did not return to the field in his dream. Instead, he stood inside the hollow stump, arms stretched wide, surrounded by roots that whispered in languages older than words. A voice, one he didn't recognize, rose from below. You came to learn. Yes, Sem answered. Then sleep no longer. The roots pulled tight around him, not in violence, but in communion. And for the first time, he remembered a life that wasn't his. Sem stood within the embrace of the roots. They pressed gently against his arms, chest and spine, not like chains, but like threads weaving something ancient into his skin. Then came the visions. A man lay in a stone temple, his chest rising shallowly beneath a layer of ash. The stars above him pulsed red. Another blink, and Sem saw a woman sleeping on a woven mat, her arms crossed over her chest, tears slipping from her closed eyes as a shadow passed over her window. Then, a monk in a cave, his back against the wall, eyes open, unable to scream as something crawled toward him on too many limbs. Thousands of dreams, thousands of people, each one frozen, each one haunted. Why are you showing me this? Sem asked the presence in the roots. Because you are one of us, the voice said. Not cruel, not kind, just certain. One of the rememberers. The roots shifted beneath him, and suddenly he was falling. Not fast, but slowly, as though being lowered through thick water. He landed in a room. Stone walls, no windows. On every surface, carvings, symbols. The curve and line etched over and over again, but twisted now, interlaced with new designs, new meanings. In the center of the room sat a figure in robes, old, barely breathing, and on his chest, burned into the skin, was the exact mark Sem had once carried. The man looked up. You came back. Sem awoke with a start. But this time he didn't scream. He sat calmly, breath steady. The dream had not been a nightmare. It had been a return. His mother stood in the doorway again, but this time she didn't speak. She only nodded. The room in the dream had not faded from Sem's mind. Even hours later, awake and sitting by the fire, he could still feel the texture of its stones, still smell the damp earth pressed into their cracks. He hadn't just seen the old man. He'd known him, somehow. I was him, Sem whispered aloud. His mother turned slowly. You remembered that far? He nodded. That place? What was it? She stirred the coals with the fire stick. It was called the Hall of the Rememberers. Long ago, when the Karabasan first whispered into the world, there were a few who chose to face it, not as victims, but as students. Of what? Of the in-between. Of the veil between waking and dream. Between life and soul. And the shadow? Sem asked. Was it their teacher? Their doorway, she said. Their tormentor, yes, but also their guide. That night, Sem didn't wait to fall asleep. He laid down and whispered the name into the dark, not fearfully, but with purpose. Karabasan. And like a switch had been flipped, the weight returned. But it didn't frighten him now. It welcomed him. His breath slowed, his arms didn't flail. He sank, deeper and deeper, until the hall rose again from shadow. He entered this time not as a visitor, but as a keeper. The old man in robes was gone. But where he once sat now lay a cloak, heavy, woven from fibers of smoke and symbols. Sem picked it up, and it wrapped itself around him, fitting his frame as though it had waited. On the wall, a new carving appeared, fresh, carved by invisible hands. It was his face. Sem stood cloaked in silence. The Hall of the Rememberers pulsed faintly with unseen breath. Every stone knew his name now. He felt it in the cold warmth beneath his feet, in the way the shadows no longer recoiled, but bowed. He walked to the centre where once the old man had sat, and lowered himself onto the cold stone. He closed his eyes, and for the first time he did not dream of the tree. He did not dream of being chased or crushed or silenced. He dreamed of falling upward, through memories not just his own, but carried through blood and spirit. A girl in Persia who screamed into a pillow as the shadow pinned her to the earth. A sailor in the North Sea, frozen beneath a wet canvas as a shrieking figure sat on his chest. A queen who refused to sleep at all until the night she did, and never woke. Each of them visited, each of them now part of the great route. But now something new stirred, not just fear, not just memory, purpose. Sem spoke, not with his mouth, but with his presence. I will not run from you. The field returned, the tree blooming impossibly tall, its roots crossing oceans. The Carabasan stood beneath it. It did not move. It only nodded. He awoke before dawn. His mother waited at the table with a bowl of warm goat's milk. You returned, she said softly. Yes. Is it over? He shook his head. No, but I understand now. He stepped outside. The village was quiet. The path that once led to fear now led to understanding. The door that once opened to darkness now led to remembering. The Carabasan would return to many. But for Sem, it was no longer a demon. It was a message. Thank you for listening to this long, ancient whisper of belief, fear, and the thin veil between dream and memory. If you're still awake, I hope you feel calm. If you're asleep, may your dreams be your own. Please don't forget to subscribe, give this video a gentle like, and tell us in the comments. Where are you listening from, and what time did you drift off? Good night from Whispers for Sleep.